All right. Hey, good morning. Good Friday morning.
Yeah, morning.
Thanks to those of you who've joined us, whether you're watching live right now or in the future on YouTube. We're live on Twitch and YouTube. And if you were here Wednesday, you saw that got cut off. As far as we can tell, StreamYard stopped streaming. At least that's what we think. At first, I thought it was my internet. I said, "Oh, something happened to my internet," and then I realized, well, the rest of the web is working. So,
Yeah, we're kind of both independently checking
yeah,
our uptime. But
yeah. What happened?
what happened? Yeah,
But
we don't know. They did not have an outage, but something went a little sideways for us. So
yeah.
We'll
By the
see how
time we
long this one lasts.
Yeah, by the time we were able to get back on, we said, well, we're not going to be able to accomplish anything today. So we're back here on Friday. It is November 15th of 2024, which means that if you've been heavily into the .NET world, you know that .NET Conf was this week, and .NET 9 is now officially generally released. So,
and if you're like us, you now have about 10 hours or not 10 hours. I don't know, a bunch of videos that you've got to catch up on.
There's a lot. There's 2 days of content plus the 24 hours on day 3.
Yeah.
And day 3 is packed. I was looking through the agenda, and there's a lot of bits in there that I can't wait to take a look at. And I think on this show, we'll be looking at, what's happened in Blazor, what's happened in Web API, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to get started, then here it is. This is the home of .NET, which you can reach by just typing dot.net into your browser window, so .net, and you end up here. And for the last couple of days, it had an embedded .NET Conf video, link or frame, but now you would click download, and you can end up here at download.NET 9, and here it is, 9.0.100. If you are a Visual Studio user and you just update to 17.12 and you have the .NET workload in your, that's something you've installed, then it will automatically update. In Microsoft Learn, we have the infamous What's New in .NET 9 document that will go into everything that's happened with Aspire and ASP.NET Core and MAUI and AI and C# 13 and F# 9 and WPF and Windows Forms and EF Core and all that. And then I always like to add the announcing .NET 9 blog post, which
Awesome.
yeah, there's a lot of stuff in here. It'll jump you off to all kinds of different things, including the infamous Stephen Tobe performance post, which he says if you print it out is 300 pages. I thought I clicked on it. I'm sure the browser's trying. I'm sure it's trying to load it. So,
and I did notice in flipping through the videos from .NET Conf that there is a companion video, so you can get all of that digested in 30-some minutes, I believe.
Yeah, on day 1, Stephen gave approximately 40-minute talk on this. So, but yeah, there's a lot.
Yeah, I've only seen one. I've actually got. I probably listened to the first few minutes of the keynote, and then on the way in this morning, I was listening to Steve Sanderson's, which is the Microsoft.extensions.ai talk. So talking about how they're bringing in AI capabilities into the language as an extension package, and it mimics some of the other extension packages they've done elsewhere. So it's definitely a good watch if you're doing things in AI, and nowadays you should at least be thinking about doing things in AI. So it's almost a recommended watch at this point.
Yeah. So if you're watching on YouTube, in the description below, those 4 links that I just showed you are all shared. Just so you can get to them quickly. We, on the other hand, this looks like the Azure portal.
Yeah.
And let me move us over here. All right. It is dark mode.
What Orbital was like. Yes, that's our project.
Yeah, you're like, what is this resource group? So we have our resource group and a Cosmos DB account that I think we created live or I probably have recreated since then. But
Mhm.
we did create this live, and it says like it looks like you don't have any containers yet, but it's using the free tier account. So I do have to add a container in order to do what we're doing. But last time we were here, you had written some code and showed us a way to generate users for the user group app, and then basically we can have generative AI basically say, hey, instead of me dreaming up hundreds of users, can you just create a bunch of them, and then we can put it in the database and use that as our test data.
Yep.
So I think that's kind of the next step here is I don't know. We can probably review what you did last time in a little bit.
Yeah, I think so. Because we're going to go back to it. I think if the plan goes the way we think. So
Yeah, we do need a container though.
okay.
So this is Cosmos DB, and we need a container, and it's giving me a survey, which I will skip for now. New database ID. Now, the database ID can hold multiple containers, right?
Yes.
So for
Yes,
now,
so databases, containers, and then items. It's
okay.
kind of the hierarchy.
So I don't know if it's going to let me say orbital DB, but I think I can try it.
Mm-hmm.
And the container that we
it's
need,
the dash, but
you think so?
I think so.
It's not. Okay. All right. Let's see what it says. Okay. I wonder if it's going to complain about either of these. Now, partition key was something I really got stuck on last time.
Okay.
Choose a property in your JSON document that has a wide range of values and evenly distributes.
A wide range of values. That's the weird thing, right? Because an ID would be a wide range of values, wouldn't it?
Yeah, like I understand the even distribution that they're thinking of is probably, what's a value you would use so that when you query, they're able to narrow down more quickly. Like, for example, if I was thinking about a SQL Server index, what you index on matters. If, for example, this would be silly, which is why you wouldn't index on it. If I was managing the history, if I had a table that was a history of every player who had ever played for the LA Lakers, but there was a team column in there of Lakers, indexing on that doesn't help me.
Right.
Because
yes,
they're all Lakers. So now that's a very extreme, silly example.
Yeah.
But it could be that the name or even their number might be widely distributed. It just but there's another thing too is to consider, which I know people are probably screaming at this. Well, what are you querying on? So yeah, I was curious what they said, if the documentation talked about naming.
Yeah, so if you go down, there's a section in there under Azure Cosmos DB containers.
Okay.
And in there, that third paragraph, right? So when you create a container, you need to supply a partition key. And I think this kind of helps, solidify a little bit. So it's not quite the ID, right, which is going to be unique, but you want to have a property that you select that basically that property distributes the data efficiently across partitions. So team, regions, things of that nature. Now, with this data, given the small project we have, I don't think that this has more than just the one partition.
Right. I agree. I just wonder if like maybe the username or something makes sense here. I don't remember what we had in the data. Do we have name?
We do have person name, yes, but this would, think of all of the data together, right? Because some of your data, well, so here's the thing. Do we have a container for people type stuff? And do we have a container for events? Or are they all just together differently documented, right? So um, what's the what's the distinction to move to a container versus just have it or keeping it all in one?
I might be thinking too much of a container like a table, and I admit that
Yes,
I'm new to this, right? So I certainly would admit that I'm not. That's the first thing that my brain wants to do is say, oh, a user's container and a events container, and I feel like what you're telling me is that's not necessarily
not
the
necessarily true, right? So if you scroll up
partition.
to in that same document,
Oh,
if you
that's here.
scroll up to let's see if I can make there we go bigger so I can see what's going on. That chart right there. So the following image shows the hierarchy of entities in a Cosmos database, right?
I thought that would be bigger.
And I'm not a data expert, right? I'm an app developer guy who has to use data because my app needs it. So
Yeah.
we bring a database guy on here and it's going to completely, I think give a lot more detail and probably course correct what we might be thinking here. But if we think about, I guess the first picture on the right side there where it says containers, right? And depending on the API we chose, and I don't know what we chose when we created the database, right? It could be a collection, a table, or it could be a graph because you have the ability to do any one of those inside of a Cosmos DB. It's just a different engine over top of the data set.
Okay. Yeah, I wonder if there's more in the Cosmos DB for NoSQL. I mean, I'm pretty sure that's what we chose here. I suppose I can check real quick. Let's see. Is it it's the DB account level that decides that? Or I think so.
Yeah, I mean that should already be a decision that's made.
Right. I was just kind of wondering if there's a way you could go back and look at it and say, okay, what did we pick? That's okay. It's okay if we can't find it.
So here, there's if you go back in the doc and in the scroll on the left side up, that menu. See the FAQ?
Yeah.
And then it talks about, background information about Cosmo, which is awesome. If you go down where it says what is an Azure Cosmos DB container, right? So it's just a group of items, and then that container can span one or more partitions, and can scale to handle practically unlimited volumes. But if we think about what we're doing for NoSQL, a container, our container is going to be known as a container, whereas in some of the other engines or the API, or some of the other APIs you might put in place, they refer to them a little differently.
Okay. All right.
And all right. Well, maybe, we go down this path and we wind up coming back, with something else. But we could so if we think about it, we could have a container where all of our stuff is together, and it's just basically there's a type in what type of document or what type of object is this, right? Is it a person? Is it an event?
Yeah, I just always get hung up here is what's something I should use here.
I would honestly, if we think about this, let's say this thing takes off. Let's say we eventually release this. Let's go back even further. Let's say we eventually release this and this thing takes off. We probably want to segment this out by user group.
Okay.
So we might have something that defines what user group, and then that can be the partition key, which means it has to be in every piece of data that we include in our container.
Okay. All right. So apparently got to create a container. It's saying that I need a database ID. We'll see if I can use a dash.
Yep.
And
What are
then,
you using to access this?
oh, how did I get
Oh, I'm
here?
sorry. You're in the. I focused on the white portion of your. You're actually in the browser itself. Okay.
Yeah, and then I opened Data Explorer because that's just where it sent me.
Okay.
So
And that makes sense.
Data Explorer has blinding mode apparently, and then the partition key we think is what you said, user group maybe.
Yeah, that would be a property that we would have to define ourselves, right? So we can call it user group. Sure.
Is that casing okay?
Um, it's casing's fine. It's just that casing would be unique. So ID lowercase is different than ID with the capital I, right? They're different properties.
Yeah, I don't know what to make. I don't know.
I think it's fine.
This is the kind of thing where we're going to find out, I suppose, right? So
Yeah.
I don't know if there's anything else I have to do here.
Mm.
These are the required pieces. So
Yeah.
I'm going to click.
So, but I mean, if you want to do a free tier, and I don't know if you've,
Which I thought I did, but
yeah, but it wants
sure.
to throw you at 1,000 RUs, and I didn't think 1,000 RUs was free.
Oh, okay. So there's something that I'm not understanding then. Like back here, it did say, gosh, there was even something where it talked about the free tier, and now I don't know where that is. Here we go. Your first 1,000 RUs will be free for the lifetime of this account. So does that mean that I'm on, basically what I have to do is make sure that I don't exceed these limits? Is that the idea?
Yes.
And a
Otherwise,
container,
you'll start getting charged.
You assign RUs to a container. Is that right?
Yes. So so now that you've assigned all 1,000 RUs to this one container, if you bring in another container.
Okay. I don't know. We'll say orbital DB. And then container. And then we said partition keys, a user group. And
yep.
I don't know if this makes any sense to be lower. Well, it does say will automatically scale. So, okay. And
okay. I see what you mean by auto scale. That's fine.
So I guess that's it.
So before you hit okay. The unique keys.
Yep.
Just if you hover over the. I mean, do we want to do that for the ID one? I mean, we get the ID for free, right? If we just say ID, it should drop it in there. We probably don't need it.
Yeah, I'll have to look up what that is. I wonder if it's you telling it that you're always going to have a key like this. All right. In any case, I'm going to click OK. And it says it's going. So now, do we need to review what we have in place already? Oh, that looks like it's close to done. That may be done. So
yeah, I mean it is that quick. If you go to items, you'll see an empty container. Right, because we haven't created any objects in there.
Okay. All right.
Cool. So here's what I'm going to do, because this is a little bit of a tutorial follow along when it comes to the database stuff. So I just dropped a thing in the chat. Right. So so what we want to do is we absolutely could bring in the Cosmo DB, or I guess it's the Azure Cosmo DB SDK, and connect to our database that way with a connection string, and do all of that in our application. What we want to try is something that is something we've heard about and thought might be a good thing to bring here, and that's a tool called Data API Builder. And what this does is it lets you very easily define an API layer over top of a bunch of different data sources. If you go up to on the left there, if you maybe open a different browser, what is the Data API on the left side? If you scroll down a little bit, there's a graph there that shows the various things that it can connect to.
Right.
So it's pretty cool because you can you define your types, right? So just like the developer typically does when they do like a code first data project, and then it'll actually create those REST methods for you. If at some point, and there might be a reason to do this when we think about the fact that our session information might have attendees in there, we might want to do some kind of a GraphQL schema where we start pulling back not only the session information, but the person information as well, if we don't specifically write it inside of there. So there's some cool things that we can do here. So you've got the capabilities not only to do REST, but also do GraphQL and have it build those out for you. And then once that's there, you now have something that you can deploy and start making calls to.
Okay. All right. So for one thing, I've noticed that it says install the Data API Builder CLI.
Yep.
Which I'm willing to bet I don't have. So let's
okay.
Let's get a terminal over here. It is .NET tool install global Data API Builder. So that looks like this. And it says successfully installed. So cool. Following command dab, except that is it .NET dab? Now look at that. So there we go. All right. So that was pretty quick.
Yeah.
Configure the local database. Now.
So we're not going to do this, right?
Yeah, right. So this is all using the emulator. Okay. Gotcha.
Exactly. So here's the rub. The documentation.
Yeah.
If you get under the quick starts, we've got a bunch of different things in there for the documentation. If we go the Azure route for Cosmo DB NoSQL, it's going to do that whole static web thing that we looked at a few shows ago.
Yep.
It doesn't. There's no API that gets created. It's basically a link that happens between static web apps and the Cosmo DB instance. What we want to do is actually have an API that maybe other applications could refer to.
Yeah.
And this path shows us how to do that, but it's pointing to a local container. So we're just going to, when it comes time to point to the local, we're going to hopefully point to the Cosmo DB instance instead.
Right. Okay.
That's my thinking.
All right. So does that mean, do we need data in here?
So as we go through the list there, they suggest putting data in there. Now I question when we need that data in there, because if you think about it, they just want to check and make sure the API works.
Yeah.
And maybe we check and make sure the API works by trying to write to it.
Okay.
And then read from it.
Okay. Yeah.
But I'm fine either way. I could certainly rerun, because I don't have a copy. We were just running it in memory, the thing that we did a week ago, because it was last Friday's show. And I never saved the data, but we could just rerun it. It takes a few, doesn't take that long. And then we can copy and paste it into that Cosmo DB environment. So it just depends whether you want the data to start or you want to write the data.
Well, so even when we get here, creating the config files, this is the real trick. This is what we're going to do next. And I see what you're saying is that you can define the schema here. and then say, okay, now that I've defined it, I will use the CLI to create. Let's see. Well, it says dab init, and then add the author entity using dab add. Okay.
Right.
All right. Oh, I see. I see how this works. Okay, I gotcha. All right. So, what I'm going to do then, I think, is let's say, let me just open this in code, where we have our static web app, but I think we'll create maybe another folder here for the data.
Sure.
Not in Orbital. We'll do it out here.
Yeah, do it at the root there.
Yep. And I don't know if we want to maybe data, or we could even say dab. I don't know.
I mean, data seed, startup.
And then in here, it says, now they created a file called schema.graphql. Does it matter if we do GraphQL, or do we want to try? There's another
I don't think
schema,
we want
right?
GraphQL.
Right. Like I want to see the other configuration file. Create configuration file. They didn't show it here because I feel like they created the configuration file.
Right, because look here, they're
seeding it with data.
Yeah.
You know what they're doing here is, I guess they're creating it from.
Oh, from that init.
Or maybe you don't. Maybe. Interesting.
So, so what that looks like is, I'm thinking through a couple of things. So what it looks like is we could basically point to the database and have it create that schema file for us.
Yeah. It kind of looks like
that. Which could be fine because our data is, because it's not complex data, right? You just look at it and then you pull it back. But unless there's some criteria that says, if you're talking to Cosmo, yeah. If you're talking to Cosmo, do you need it to be a GraphQL thing? And I don't think that's the case. Because you could certainly do SQL calls to Cosmo. I mean, that's kind of what we're doing here. Interesting.
So it's interesting. The API builder enables you to access tables, views, and stored procedures from a connected database. So I wonder if what we want to do is we can connect it, first of all. But I mean, we're not going to get much out of that, I don't think. But see, they seeded data first. But I wonder what would happen if we ran this.
What could go wrong? It's not gonna. I mean, it's not gonna do anything.
I don't know what host mode development is, but there's another piece that we need, which is the connection string. Well, actually, it says, let's see, Cosmos DB NoSQL database. Oh, you got to tell it which database. This is saying that it wants a certain, what's the schema, and then what's the connection string. Okay, so we've still got to define the database.
Yeah.
So do you believe or know that database name I created was unique worldwide?
Yeah, otherwise it wouldn't have gone through.
Okay. So just by saying orbital DB, that was.
Yeah, I mean, if you go to if you go to under settings, the key, actually it's there right there on the URI there on the left, right. You see how it's got orbital Cosmo DB, right? That's your unique URI.
That's the URI.
Yeah.
They wanted to know the name of the database.
That's orbital-cosmos. Oh, wait. I'm sorry. Orbital-cosmos is the account. Orbital DB is the database.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. So I think I would say orbital DB here. And then this is
Yep.
what I might have to take off screen, because I think there's going to be a key in here.
There definitely will be.
So, and I think it was connection string. Let me just double check. That's defining the GraphQL schema, which we're not going to do, and then -- connection string. So let me go find that. Actually, find it in the portal here. I'll leave this up for now because I won't paste it yet. So in the portal, I am going to
under settings.
Oh, there's keys. Is that it?
Yep. Well,
primary connection string. Yeah. So there is a primary connection string I can view. Yep. That looks like that's it.
Your primary connection string just contains your primary key.
Yeah. In fact, to the point that I think we talked about last time is there's 2 keys, and that helps you like with things like rollover and stuff.
Exactly.
So what I'm going to do is so this is the command. Everybody can see it. What we haven't added here is this part. So I'm going to go add that, run it, and then we'll see what happens. So there is a mandatory config option that I missed according to this. Oh no, I just misspelled it. If you were looking at, I put Cosmos DB _ NoSQL -database instead of dash. So I just typed it incorrectly.
Oh, okay.
And that one, let's see, what didn't you like there? I think the problem there is I really needed to put the connection string in quotes. I think it got confused with the slashes and so on. Now so that ran. And I'm going to see if I can come back here. There was an error in it. So I'm going to bring this
back. Probably
back.
because we don't have any items in there.
Well, it says Cosmos NoSQL database is unknown. Oh, so actually, no, that was correct. It was an underscore.
Oh.
Okay, let me go back and try that again.
Let's say, I mean, yeah. You could always take
that I might have the wrong. Missing mandatory configuration option for. So here, I'm going to scroll it down a little. I'm going to try and scroll this so that we can see what it said.
Okay.
Sorry that I kind of hate that I have to do it this way, but.
Okay. We could always create an environment variable and use that.
Yeah, wouldn't that be so much smarter? So that's, in fact, let me work on that.
Yeah,
so that's what we got.
Well, we don't see the command though, right?
No.
Missing mandatory configuration option. Okay. NoSQL database. So you get a -- Cosmos DB NoSQL -database and GraphQL schema. But that's interesting. So it does want GraphQL schema because it is Cosmo.
It could be that maybe once you've gone NoSQL, like that's it. It doesn't mean you can't use REST. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that maybe you have to provide
a schema.
GraphQL endpoint. Yeah. Okay. All right, so I'm going to close this, bring back this editor, and sure enough, now I can call it leaving the connection string secret, as long as I don't maybe goof up, because you know what's going to happen. I'll type dab init, and it'll be like, oh, do you want this one from earlier?
Nice.
So I'm sure that's going to happen to us, and then I'll have to regenerate the key. So in any case, okay, so we don't have a config file. So bringing back, let me make sure that I am not there. And then like you said, in the quick start. So in their example, they use this author and model with an ID. Looks like I'm going to guess that the exclamation mark was required, although I don't know for sure. And
that makes it required field, right?
Sure. So at this point, I'm not 100% sure how it works. So let's create a new file here. schema.graphql.
GraphQL.
And we won't use this one. We can put in our own, right?
Yeah, definitely.
We had a type user.
Actually, we called it person.
Okay, we had a type person. And then what else? What do I need in here?
ID, first name. We did not do middle. We did email instead.
Okay. And do you think they were all required, basically?
I think so.
Okay, good enough. Good enough. This should be fine. So now we have a schema.graphql that we can use. So heading back here, okay, we know we need one more thing. We need GraphQL schema, and we're going to have to point to where that is. I just want to see what they're. Okay, so they left it in the root. We did not.
That's fine.
So that's should be fine.
We're running this in the root, so
I think I maybe say data schema .graph QL and okay, so
we got the dab.config.json.
Yeah, and in fact, if I bring back Visual Studio Code, we can see that.
Oh, cool.
Oh, look at that. So the account key's hiding in here. That's a little bit of something to remember, is that it's not the whole key, but certainly don't want to scroll any further to the right. So it's always fun to see how quickly you can expose your keys when you're streaming.
They're trying at every opportunity to make themselves visible. So
yeah. Okay, so now
the command. So we've got a structure, and then if you go back to that, to the command window, it said, well, there you go. It says it there too. .dab add whatever.
Right, we could add one.
Okay.
Now they added it from a source, right? That's what that author's. Well, I'm guessing that's what they did. Add an author entity using dab add source authors. Was that?
Scroll back up because I think
the author's container.
But they said seed the container with this data,
mm-hmm.
which is a little different, right?
Yeah, they seeded the container first, and then I'm guessing what dab does is saying, "Hey, I want an entity that I can access in this data API called author in their case, and the source is going to be this container."
Oh, okay.
So I'm not sure if you must seed it, but we can look at the help for the dab command. Yeah, it says it's required. Name of the source database object, permissions are required.
But that's so authors is their container, so we're fine. We got that.
Right, we have a container. And then permissions we can deal with. So what I'm wondering is are you feeling like, do you have to have data seeded, or do you just start working?
I think we just start working.
Okay.
Because there's nothing in that config.json that got created that is an endpoint or anything like that, right?
Not yet.
Okay.
So dab add, and ours was person, right?
Person. Dash source.
And I have to get our container, which was called
Data Explorer.
It's in Data Explorer. I'm like, what is it? Orbital container. Okay. And then the permissions, which I guess we'll just use theirs as well.
Right. They're using anonymous.
Yeah. Okay. Config not provided. Trying to get default config based on dab environment. Interesting. Oh, because I didn't provide a config. They did find the dab config JSON though,
Mm-hmm.
and they added the
New
entity,
entity,
which I'm gonna double check. If did that add it to the config, and it did. Let me bring that back here.
Okay.
So the config says there's now a person whose source is orbital container, and it's GraphQL, and it even figured out the plural. REST is not enabled. Okay. So this could have
That's
been
pretty
done
cool.
via config, I suppose.
So,
Yeah.
so now we should be able to do a dab start, right?
That's what it says. It says dab start. So let's see. Dab start, and it runs something. So
Yeah,
we've
just get a
got
URL somewhere.
we've got sitting on localhost 5000.
Yeah.
We have that. Okay. So now the question is, am I able to use that? And it's been a little while since I've done this, but I think I should be able to get localhost 5000, except that I didn't make it 5000. Now the question is I don't know that that's going to do anything. It says it's healthy,
It's just healthy.
so
yeah,
that's cool. All right,
but if you want,
that's just me testing that I can connect to it. So
yeah, I think you got to do /GraphQL.
Yeah. Okay.
That'll give you a response.
Yeah,
now we don't have any data in there,
right?
so it
I
should
agree
give
with
us
you.
just an empty set.
Okay, what did you do? Let's get rid of this response to see what happened here. No, I wanted it to be GraphQL. I think Copilot got a little
happy.
Got a little anxious. And so
200.
We got an HTTP doc type, which is probably not what I wanted. So what's interesting is they navigated it to it in the browser, which is what just happened is I got browser input back. And so, wow, look at this. I got this whole thing. Yeah, sure. Why not? So I got like this little, this browser to look at. How interesting. I don't know if you were expecting this.
No, I was going to ask you, where did you get that browser from?
Yeah, I just /GraphQL. Here's a browser. It knows about people by primary key.
Is there an operation?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, look at this little.
That's wild.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I don't know how to add one because I just don't know. Yeah, see,
Be part of the.
I don't know how to add stuff.
So let's maybe do. I mean, because there was a property in there that says rest option to false.
Right. I don't know what's going to happen, but we could try changing that. The problem is I think we both don't know what else has to be enabled here, if anything.
Right.
Like, is that enough? I'm going to say it's probably not.
Probably not, right? Because it may want to know a type.
Right.
I mean, just based on the signature of the one above it.
Yeah. So setting up the REST API is new to me. Configuration file, section,
configuration schema,
data source. What are we in? We're in entities.
Yes.
We're in entities REST.
Well, entities and the object, and then REST. right? So we created a person entity.
So
Right.
it's saying
Entities,
enabled is
entity name.
true.
Yeah.
They have defaults though. See that? They have defaults.
Mm.
So I wonder if you can just leave them, let them go, because this was explicitly set to false. If we set it to true and leave these defaults, is it going to say, okay, well, the path is the entity name, which we can figure out, and then we're going to automatically do get and post?
Yeah. I think it's worth looking at.
Sure. So we'll cancel this. I don't think I saved this. Okay. We'll start again. Not really clear what it did there, but let's go ahead and open. I'm just going to open the endpoint, and we don't get a whole lot, right? We get the health check,
Right.
which is okay. But the question now is, what was the name of the entity again? Was it person? Right. So it makes you wonder if there is person, bad request, invalid path for route person.
So in the when you were looking at entities, hang on.
I didn't define any routes, and I don't
Right,
know if I absolutely had to.
Well, by default, it should route you to the entity name, which it looks like it is not.
Yeah.
Is capitalization? I don't.
So I tried both, and I got
okay.
So I get invalid path for route person. And then, well, that's obviously not going to be correct. That didn't work either. I don't think we're going to get anything here. I just thought maybe.
Right. Oh, sure.
It sure tried, though.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we're going to close this.
Here's what we can do.
Okay.
What if we just really quickly go into the container and create an item? This way we've got some data.
Right. Then at least we have something in the GraphQL API.
Yeah.
Right. So let me turn this back to false. I'm also wondering if there's some kind of collision here now. So I'm just going to set that back to false. We will go to, and I don't remember if the config, I wonder if I needed to init again, possibly. Like that's another thing that I didn't think about. So, actually, I see the REST controller blew up. Invalid path for route person. Oh, no, it blew up when I called it. That's why. Okay, so let's not worry about that. So we want to go back to, say, Data Explorer. Is that right?
New item.
And I guess this could be, theoretically, it could be Philly.net, I guess.
Sure. You can just do PDN for short.
Yep. And then a document ID, which we don't really have, but I could put a GUID in there, I guess.
Yeah.
We'll create a GUID very quickly. Woo! All right. So we got a GUID. I bet you I probably could have had that done another way. All right. And then we need first name.
Yep.
Like this.
However we specified in that GraphQL file, I would think.
So we said first name, last name, email. Okay.
Cool.
First name, John, example. And then,
I just want John.
I just want John, yeah. And then last name, example. And then the email is John at example.com. Okay.
Cool.
So
save that.
Save it. And that's the one item that's in here, right?
Yes.
So theoretically, I could create another one, but that should be fine.
Yeah, we just want one.
Come back here, start dab again. And what was really interesting was the fact that I could go to this like nifty Explorer that seems to be built in. Sign in for documents, huh? Oh, wow. I don't even know what that's for.
Yeah.
There must be, I'm wondering if there's a way to customize that.
I would think so.
Yeah. So the request now. In their quick start, they go to GraphQL and run this operation.
Okay.
We'll modify this, considering that I'm definitely going to be new to GraphQL. So I'm glad that there was a sample there. And run this operation. So we want to query. Oh, well, it's helping me build it, actually.
Oh, cool.
Oh, yeah. Okay, let's get rid of this
So
author
people,
thing.
right? So there's two operations there, right?
Yep.
People is everybody.
Right.
Person is by the primary key.
Right. And I'm guessing that I can say that I want the email, the first name, and the last name. I want to take a look and compare it to what the documentation was saying. Email, first name, last name. And when I go to the quick start, yeah, see, they're just ignoring the other metadata.
Yeah.
But that's okay, I think. So I run this and we get our response saying that there's no next page.
Sure.
And end cursor is null. So, I mean, there it is. There's
your person.
one example. Now, we could write a GraphQL query that does the same thing, right?
Sure.
Not knowing enough about GraphQL, I'm thinking that, is this the request body? So like if I come out here and I say this and I set this as the request body. No. I'm wondering if there's an accept that I'm getting wrong here. Just because I'm new to it, right? It's pretty cool though.
Oh yeah.
I think that was interesting that we got this much support out of it in like 2 seconds. So I wonder now if I do something, what is it, 46? What if I do something a little crazy here? Is open up the dev tools and I'm on network and I run this again. And we see that you call GraphQL and we post. So that might have been an issue.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, get won't help.
Request header says content type of these provisional headers. So maybe it was just post. Maybe that was the only thing I needed to do. The payload has the query looks different. That's not actually, no, not really.
It's just wrapped in a query.
Maybe the query did really look different.
Can you copy it?
I think so. Copy string as JSON literal. Okay. So bring this back out here or to this thing. What happened when I copied that? I definitely got a JSON literal and then switch this to post. I don't know that this is enough. Got a not found, so I may not have done that correctly. I'm not 100% sure that this needed to be here. And in fact, all of the other strings might also be a problem. You know, I wonder. I don't think you necessarily do this, but because they said query and then put the query inside. So I might be trying too hard here.
Yeah, it's almost like you need to wrap that in another query. And quote that, right? No,
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure how this gets sent across. I just don't know.
That's fair.
So,
not liking that. Okay.
I kind of want to remove all of this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But that seemed like that was going to be tedious, although it really doesn't seem to be that tedious, I guess. So not having any experience with GraphQL, but we could figure that out. So that actually probably isn't a big deal. I think it's neat though that this thing came up, because at least we could say, okay, we know we can get our person back. Now the question is like about like adding one. I get what your point is that we could, once we learn how to like add and modify, now you can start going to the UI and basically say, okay, now we have the pieces in place we need to update this with an API that we didn't have to build using Data API Builder. And the other thing that we're not really saying, although I'm not an expert in Data API Builder at all by any means, is that I think we can do things like there's a way that we can take what we're doing. So this is all happening locally.
Right.
But the end publishing of it can be either to, static web apps, a container. I think it can go to container apps.
Mm-hmm.
So what is kind of neat, I think, is I like that local development story. That was cool. We would just have to look into like, now how do you deploy this?
Right. And there's a whole section on doing the deployment bits.
Right.
A whole guide as well, depending on where you want to deploy them.
Yeah.
Although the guide's pretty short. A lot of it comes down to, now, did we define an environment when we did the configuration? Like the init?
Our init command, I think, was dab init, and then it had the connection string. Host mode development. So maybe host mode.
Yeah.
So dab init, if I help on that, we're going to get host mode. I see, development or production, and then we'd have to go from there, because I wonder if you basically set, I don't know. Default is production. Specify the host mode. And then look at that. Default is static web apps. Huh. Okay, so what you're saying,
that's default.
You're saying that it could have been dab init and set to production, and that would actually be hosted. What I don't know is where it's hosted, and do you tear it down and things like that? I don't know.
Right.
Okay.
Environments. So, right. So environments are on defining what configurations are set. And having different sets of environment variables and a different configuration for development and production from the looks of it. I think we kind of knew that from the options that were there.
Yeah. Yeah, so I feel like maybe, I wonder if the config files can also specify host mode, so you could basically have like your local, here I'm just working, and then you run it with the other config, and it I mean, it's weird. I feel like what I'm getting here is that you can publish this to the Data API Builder like right from your command line.
Mm-hmm.
and it just works. That's going to be very interesting to look at.
Yeah. Can we did try and run, so when we ran it as a REST endpoint,
Yeah.
we did not have any data in there. Can we try and maybe see if we can get that? And maybe what I would suggest here is do that true, but then also do false for the graph.
Oh, like just turn off graph? Okay.
I think so.
Because, yeah, I was concerned that the defaults might have been colliding, but
Yeah.
I don't know that we knew that. And the other thing I don't know is I feel like maybe, well, do we have to run init again?
It looks like init just sets up the files from what it.
Right. So I'm going to run it and see it is it generated the file. Okay. All right.
Right.
So we don't want to generate the file. So we say dab start, and I don't think we had anything else here, right? Just dab start.
Can you do dab start help? Because if we define it doesn't say define an environment variable. All right, never mind.
Okay. It loaded the config from dab config JSON and says that it launched it. So now the question is, does this get me anything? No. And can I go to person and just do a get? No. So I'm going to try a couple things. First of all, I'm going to try people. Did not work. And then we'll try person capitalized, and that didn't work either.
I mean, that's going to be problematic. I mean, it's great for performance potentially, using a GraphQL API, but that's going to, if we can't write using a GraphQL, it's not helping us. We still need some way of now writing, which short of an API means going to the SDK and doing the upsert.
So the entity name was person. And so path should be the entity name, at least that's according to that. And then the methods, the default methods. Now that I've done this, now that I've changed this, I'm just to, I guess for completeness, just to make sure, I would believe, oh, what happened to that to start? It went really far away. Sorry, I just wanted to get to the browser. I should not be able to go to the GraphQL
Right.
part. That shouldn't work. But see, that still seems to be here. So something's up.
Well, because that's just the engine, right? If you go ahead and bring up that piece where we run it.
That's what I'm looking for, yeah.
So at the very top, right? No, that's create document. No, there you go.
See, this is all still here.
We need to get that. Yeah, so we don't have anything in the request.
Right. Anyways, this all seemed to be working just fine, right?
Yeah.
Which we're not expecting.
So GraphQL mutation.
I agree with you that I think we could add a new mutation and we could figure this out. I don't know how to do that, but
yeah.
But the thing that gets me is it doesn't look like we disabled the GraphQL API, despite
I know, which is weird.
What this says. So it found davconfig JSON. So yeah, that's the thing I don't know. And then this is just us trying to use it.
Yeah, trying to use it in a way that we think we should based on how we talk to other data sources, but this is the first time we're doing this as a Cosmo.
Right.
Trying to use the tool to kind of help us make that configuration happen. And that tool may be opinionated and say, well, this is the only way you can talk to me.
Okay.
That's interesting.
Entities.person, not one of entities.person.source. It says that type is required.
Type being singular or plural?
It's just interesting that that's the same thing that it's complaining about, right? Is it saying property required person source type config is invalid? But if I set this back to the way it was and run that validate again, okay, it's still complaining about the same thing. So but the thing is, it was working before. So I mean, working is, I suppose, a relative term. So it's kind of saying, hey, there's another configuration I expect here. I expect type. And I don't know what the heck that would do.
Interesting.
So now if I go validate the config, and again, I'm not 100% sure what that would do. So now it says
config's valid.
Yeah, it's like sort of in this thing where it was like, okay, sure, but I don't know if that did anything, to be totally fair.
Right. What's going to happen when you try and talk to it?
Yeah. See, as far as we know, that hasn't changed this. Unless, see, and it says failed to load the definition. I'm not seeing anywhere else. I was hoping to find, like, I mean, is that the problem? Is it API/people? No. That's what we get for not
for just diving in.
For just diving in and not following a REST tutorial. Because I mean, they have one. Don't they? Don't they have a quick start that uses
sure.
Quick start local SQL. Here, the database was configured from the database, and then when they tested it, so interesting. They did go to this, and they did say API-author. So first try the API manually by issuing a GET request, but the Swagger's not coming up.
Yeah.
So I feel like there's more.
That I agree with.
Now I wonder if I should do the add again. Okay. Just curious. Was there an update? Update an existing entity. Dab update person. Config not provided. Loaded config file. Updated the entity. Because remember, REST was disabled.
Right.
And no, doesn't seem to have made a difference. So we're going to have to do a little bit of research there, for one thing, to find out, can you only use GraphQL? I mean, I don't want to say that this is it without knowing more, but can you only use GraphQL with the NoSQL?
Yeah.
Don't know.
All right, got some reading to do then.
Yep, definitely. So feature availability. Oh, is this going to say it? Feature availability, GraphQL. Let's just call like selection. Yes. But now if I drop to REST, look at this.
Oh.
Okay, so working as designed. That's my conclusion. Working as designed is that Data API Builder does not generate a REST API for as the API for NoSQL provides a native REST API. So it's almost like what they're saying is we don't
need to do this. Yeah.
So that's good to know too.
So then, okay. That might be helpful if we think about that GraphQL capability, right? Of being able to expand out the entities underneath a session.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
we may come back to this.
We may be able to come back to this. Like, we just might not need the Data API Builder, which is I still think is a pretty interesting tool. And especially if you have like a relational database.
Yeah.
That feels like, wow, what a way to get up and start at least examining data just really quickly. But
it is pretty cool. And that, like you said, that tool that's there is a surprise. I didn't know that was in the box.
Yeah, I didn't either. And especially, so you're talking to somebody who had no idea, definitely is new to GraphQL, and to see that, like, okay, I don't really know a whole lot about this, but I'm able to figure things out, somewhat quickly anyways.
Mm-hmm. Unlike this screen.
Yeah, I couldn't find the coding overlay. I was like, where is it? It's somewhere in here.
Here.
I'm like, it's sitting here. I'm like, where did it go? Oh, there it is. All right, hide. All right. So there's a Friday morning for you.
Sometimes you just gotta get in there and try some stuff out.
Yeah, and then go read the docs.
When all else fails, yes.
Yeah. So the answer was right there.
Read them beforehand. What's the point in that?
Why would you do that? The answer was right there as to why it wasn't working. So in any case, hey, we tried out Azure Cosmos DB for NoSQL. I'm pretty sure that when I was, I'm almost positive that when I was scrolling back in PowerShell, that I probably exposed the key to the DB. So definitely going to go regenerate that or get rid of it. One of the two.
Cool.
Because it just seems like no matter what, I find a way to.
Yep.
Yeah, if there's a way to. Are you sure this will regenerate the key? Yes, of course I'm sure. All right.
Definitely. Cool. All right. So we're kind of at stand-up time, a little past.
Yeah, definitely.
Mine is delayed by a half hour, so I do got to get set up for some things there. But yeah.
Well, awesome. Thank you for joining me, and helping push through that. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll see where we go next with this. Again, the idea is a user group app that's using static web apps, using Blazor WebAssembly standalone, and then we were going to try a NoSQL database. So it's a lot of new stuff. Okay. I think we're all set. So, hey, thank you, Rich.
Yeah.
Really appreciate you joining us. Leave comments. Let us know what you think. And I think next week we'll see you, right? Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, we'll see you all next time on the Dev Talk Show.